Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org and Quasi Yoga with Pam Fox on Facebook. Good morning. Today is going to be another video that's continuing yesterday's topic about GERD, gastric esophageal reflux disorder. And the reason I'm doing these videos is because this is a condition that I have suffered with for many, many years. It started for me in my mid-30s. And I went down kind of conventional paths of treating it. Didn't find those paths very effective, and once I started looking into the medications, decided that wasn't really something I wanted to participate with as well because of the risks. And so if you're anything like me, when it comes to my health and the conditions that I have, I always want to know why do I have this condition? That's always just been the pressing question, is why am I sick? Why do I have this disease? And so that's what I'm going to talk about today in reference to GERD. Why do we get GERD? Because if we can address the source, right? If we can address the source and remove the source, then we can remove the illness, right? Take away what's causing the illness, then you take away the illness. I mean, that's logically what's ideally would happen. And so just a little recap about yesterday's video. I talked about our anatomy and how the stomach and the esophagus are like this, and right where the two meet there's a sphincter known as the lower esophageal sphincter, and its job is to keep the contents of the stomach in the stomach. And we have this diaphragm right here as well, and that little hole where the esophagus comes through is known as the hiatus. And so we talked about reasons that we have GERD associated symptoms. Reasons like bloating. Your digestive system bloats, it expands, it puts pressure on that sphincter. Constipation, when we bear down, the stomach constricts, it puts pressure on that sphincter. Lots of things, chronic coughing, chronic sneezing, weight bearing, same thing, weight bearing and constipation, it's kind of that bearing down, puts pressure on that LES and creates symptoms. Sucking in your gut, we talked about that yesterday. Just by simply pulling in your abdominal muscles, you're pushing everything up, you're crowding all of your organs, and you're creating pressure on that lower esophageal sphincter. Emotional stress, we talked about swallowing your anger and how you can carry, bitterness and anger and resentment your entire life, and that can manifest itself in your belly. Carrying all that tension in your belly puts pressure on that sphincter. Spicy foods can cause contraction. An empty stomach, dehydration. These are all things, that just happen, that we do, that create that pressure on the LES. But I want to go a little bit deeper today and talk about, we talked about how the job of the LES is to keep the contents in the stomach. Okay, and so in your stomach you have you have acid in your stomach, right? And so a lot of times when we think of our condition, we think of having acid reflux, and we take, a little purple pill to neutralize the acid in our stomach. We think to ourselves that we have GERD because we just have too much acid. Okay? And so what I want to say about that is that we need a lot of acid in our stomach. I talked a little bit about that yesterday. We need lots of acid in our stomach because that acid's job is to begin to break down the food. It's part of the digestive process. And so when you neutralize that acid, now you've compromised that part of the digestive process, and your food's not going to get digested as properly as it should be, and then we're going to have nutrient deficiency because it's all about absorption. So you can have a really great diet, but if you have poor absorption, then you're not going to get those nutrients, right? And so when we decrease the acid in our stomach, then we're compromising that part of the digestive process. So having acid in your stomach is actually really, really key. We want to have lots of acid in our stomach. That hydrochloric acid that is made in the stomach to break down your foods. So we need to get out of that mentality that we're just too acidic. I mean, that's another issue, but when it comes to the stomach, we want acid in our stomach. And I'm not telling anyone to go cold turkey off of your proton pump inhibitors, your Nexium, your Prevacid. I should probably do a little disclaimer at the beginning of each of these videos if I was smart, but that's not what I'm saying. Some people do that. I know my mom tried to do that and she was miserable. So I think that my best suggestion for you is if you're really wanting to try to heal in natural and effective ways from your GERD, is to find someone that can support you. Maybe it's a naturopath that can support you in this. Oftentimes a naturopath will put you on hydrochloric acid. They'll give you supplements to build back up the acid in your stomach and then help you. Maybe you can go to a chiropractor. They can do manipulation techniques just like I've been teaching you that will pull your stomach down, bring your diaphragm up, and give your stomach a little bit of space that takes that pressure off of that sphincter. Okay? And so I talked about in yesterday's video the exercise that I've done that's done just that. Brought the stomach down, brought the diaphragm up, gives me instant relief anytime I'm symptomatic. From acid reflux, chronic belching, indigestion. These are my main symptoms. So instant relief. Within 1 or 2 breaths, I have instant relief from these symptoms simply because I'm allowing the stomach to slip down, lifting my diaphragm by just placing a little bit of arch in my back. And then I talked about yesterday how you can put a little bit of pressure on your stomach simply by finding your stomach. Just find your diaphragm right under your rib cage, slide down the left rib about 2 inches. That's the top of your stomach. You don't have to push and poke and prod. It's just a little bit of pressure. It's not much. It doesn't take much. So a little bit of pressure. Sometimes it takes time. It took me time to really make this connection and to relax the belly. That's the most important thing to do, is really look, where is that tension in my belly, in my sides, in the front, the top. Really relax that belly, because it's those muscles of the abdomen that are pulling in and pushing your stomach up. So just by allowing those muscles to relax, it's going to give that stomach room to move down. And then by arching your back, that's going to, watch my ribs, that's going to lift my diaphragm. So posture and relaxing the belly, slow, deep breaths. But today I want to go a little bit deeper. I want to go a little bit deeper about the cause of GERD. So we talked about pressure and the things that cause the pressure on the LES. Remember, the LES's job is to keep the contents in the stomach. When it can't do that, think about that little beach ball. Think about that valve. When you squeeze it, it compromises, when you squeeze the LES, it compromises it in its ability to do its job, and then the contents come up. Just like when squeezing that valve in a little beach ball, the air can now flow in and out instead of, keeping it a one-way valve and keeping the air in. So, so we want to talk today about the hiatus and the diaphragm. So again, the hiatus is this little hole in the diaphragm where the esophagus comes through. That is your hiatus, okay? And the LES is right where the esophagus and the stomach meet. It would be right here, and it's just below that diaphragm, okay? So your sphincter is here, your diaphragm is here. Now let's imagine all of that pressure over a long period of time has made your stomach begin to herniate through that hiatus. Okay, this is known as a hiatal hernia. Many people have them. Many people have them and don't even know it. Many people with GERD have a hiatal hernia. Maybe you haven't gotten a diagnosis. There's a really good chance that's what you have. And that's simply what it is that pressure causing the stomach to go up and then push through that hiatus. And so the hiatus in the diaphragm, I want to talk about that for a minute. Its job is to keep the stomach below the diaphragm. Okay, so what is the diaphragm? The diaphragm, it sits right here below your lungs, and its job, when your lungs expand with air, the diaphragm moves down, and when your lungs deflate, the diaphragm moves up, okay? And just like any other muscles in your body, when the diaphragm becomes weak and loose, it's not able to do its job. Okay, when it's strong and healthy, it's able to do its job. And so that diaphragm, you've probably heard of, singers. If you know any singers, they do diaphragmatic breathing to strengthen their diaphragm. And that's what I want to talk about today, because when your hiatus, that hole in your diaphragm, becomes loose and weak, and you've got all that continual pressure coming up, then that's when it's going to slip through, and then you've got that pressure on the LES from it just being up, in there. You can just kind of logically imagine that it's just going to now kind of put a little bit of pressure, just like that valve on the beach ball, and now things can escape. So how do we address this? How do we strengthen our diaphragm? Let's talk about that next. So again, if you know any singers, they do this diaphragmatic breathing to strengthen their diaphragm. And what I want to show you today is one simple effective. You guys got to trust me on this. At least in my experience and the people that I've helped, this works. It's a simple and effective exercise to strengthen the diaphragm, and it's so, so easy. But if you're a singer, or if you know someone that's a singer, listen up, because what I'm going to teach you is probably quite a bit different than what they're doing. Okay, so typically, conventionally, when we talk about diaphragmatic breathing, we talk about taking in a deep breath, expanding the belly, and then we exhale fully, and we pull that belly back in. And so the idea with this, and please follow along carefully, because what I'm talking about now is what I advise you not to do. But what the premise is with this exercise is that, again, the lungs expand with the air, the diaphragm moves down, the lungs deflate, and then if we pull our belly in, that's going to push that diaphragm up, which it is. Okay, but what I want to do is strengthen that diaphragm. And so when we pull our belly in and push that diaphragm up, we're aiding that diaphragm. We're not allowing it to do the work by itself. We're pulling in our belly and pushing the diaphragm up. We're helping it out. Okay, so ideally what we want to do is relax the belly and allow the diaphragm to do that work during the exercise. So here's the exercise that I recommend to strengthen your diaphragm. So the best way to do this is actually lying down. So you can lie down on the floor, but you can lie down on a couch or on the bed. It doesn't matter. But lie on your back. Relax. You can place your hands again on your stomach, finding that sternum and sliding down a couple inches, finding your stomach and just gentle pressure. Again, it doesn't take much. It's just a little help to push that stomach down and get it out of the way. But then taking your deep breath, expand your lungs, and then exhale, but keep the belly relaxed. And what you want to do is really slow the breath and really deflate the lungs. So you're gonna blow all the air out, and then you're just gonna linger for a moment. It's almost gonna feel like you've blown all the air out and you're just holding your breath, basically. But this is the practice. This is the exercise. So again, deep breath in, lungs expand, diaphragm. Remember, that's a muscle. We're trying to strengthen that muscle. Diaphragm. The diaphragm doesn't just. The lungs don't push the diaphragm out of the way. It's its job to pull down and give space for those lungs to expand when we take a deep breath. And then it's its job to push up to help those lungs deflate when we exhale. So by taking these long, slow breaths and relaxing the belly, you're strictly working the diaphragm, okay? And so then so you want to do this, 5 breaths, 10 breaths. If you feel a little bit dizzy, that can happen because you're taking these really deep breaths, but just try to relax the body. Try to breathe as normal as possible without making yourself dizzy. You don't want to pass out, but you're expanding the lungs, allowing that diaphragm to do its job and move down, and fully deflating the lungs. But really, really think, what is my belly doing during this exercise? Look, search for tension in your belly, and really just let it go. That is so key. It took me so long to really connect with this and figure out, because once you start doing that, you'll really start to notice the results. At least that was my experience. 5 breaths, 10 breaths, do it every day. What my experience has been is, the healthier my diet is, the least symptomatic I am, but I am still symptomatic occasionally. I still have certain trigger foods that can cause, GERD-associated symptoms, but it's really rare. And what I've noticed is when I'm consistent with this exercise, do it every night before I go to bed. And by the way, it's extremely relaxing. I mean, you're slowing your breath, you're relaxing your body. It's a great way to prepare to go to sleep. You're focused on your breath and your body, so you're not thinking about your life and your day and tomorrow. So it's a good way to clear the mind. It's a great way to go to bed every night. But my experience has been that I'll be non-symptomatic for a period of time, and then the symptoms begin to come back. So consistency is really important with this. And what we're essentially doing is trying to heal. So we're trying to strengthen, again, that hiatus as we get older. And all of these things I've talked about just lack of use, shallow breathing. One way to find out if you're a shallow breather, and if you're a shallow breather, that can cause your diaphragm to become weakened, right? Because you're not taking those full breaths. You're not working your diaphragm. One way to know if you're a shallow breather, and a lot of us are, especially as we get older, is to take a deep breath with me right now. Take a really deep breath. And right now, what are your shoulders doing? If you're pulling your shoulders up, then you're probably a shallow breather. Another way you can find out if you're a shallow breather is place your hand on your belly. Again, with me, take a really deep breath. If your belly expands right now as you're taking that deep breath, then you're not a shallow breather. If your belly is still when you take a deep breath, if it's all up here, if if it's just the chest rising, then you're probably a shallow breather. And so we can overcome shallow breathing through these exercises simply by practicing, right? We can learn anything and become better at anything simply by practicing it. And so, so yeah, that's it, guys. It's basically what it comes down to is you strengthening that diaphragm, that hole in the diaphragm where the esophagus comes up, and you begin to, have that hernia where the stomach is coming through, and then you've got the pressure right there on that sphincter. It's right there. So if it comes up into that hiatus, you're going to have pressure on there. And it's really, easy to visualize that. If you think about that beach ball and just putting a little bit of pressure on that valve, now the air can come out. Okay, so we want that LES to be able to do its job, to be able to clamp down and keep the contents of the stomach in. That's the goal. And if your hiatus is strong, it's going to keep that stomach underneath the diaphragm, right where it belongs. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. Again, I'm really passionate about this subject because this is a condition that I've had for many, many years, and I've been able to overcome it in effective and natural ways, which means I take no medication. Again, I'm not advising you to go cold turkey on your medication. That's something I should be more careful about. Here on Facebook and on my YouTube channel, I try to always throw that in there. I'm not advising anyone to go cold turkey and discontinue any of your medications. I know I've tried to do that in the past, and it's gotten me in trouble. So it's best to do it, under supervision of a doctor that will support you in your goals, which is to try to get off of these medications and heal naturally. And sometimes it's hard to find someone that can help you do that. I know that I found a really good naturopath that it supports me in healing in natural ways. So you can too. In my yoga class, Quasi Yoga with Pam Fox, we do a lot of this stuff. We focus a lot on relaxing the belly. For those of you, any of my students out there watching, we focus on relaxing the belly quite a bit. Just all throughout the exercise class, because so many people deal with this problem. And so we practice that in my yoga class. I want to invite you to my yoga class, Quasi Yoga with Pam Fox. It meets Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Ocean Park Retreat Center. Again, we focus on flexibility, balance, and strength. We never get on the floor. And we focus on meditative breathing, again, to address these issues, to help us to practice being more of a relaxed person, to manage our stress, and so on and so forth. So your first class is free. I hope you'll come out and just check us out, just see what it's about. It's a great group of people. I'm so fortunate. I don't know how I got such a wonderful, loving community of people coming to my exercise class. I love you all. You're so amazing. So I'm going to wrap this up and wish you a really, really awesome day, and thank you for watching.